welcome to the Kentucky Prepper Podcast. We recently had the pleasure to visit a homestead nestled in the Daniel Boone National Forest. The homesteaders there opened their doors and their hearts to share with us their story and give advice on getting started on your own homestead journey. We hope you enjoy today's episode. This episode we have returning Jen and B as some guest hosts.
You got to say hi.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say ain't no need to be shy. It ain't your first time.
No, it's not.
Do you guys want to introduce yourself?
I'm Donna.
I'm Jeremy.
Donna and Jeremy have a beautiful homestead in Kentucky, and it's absolutely phenomenal out here. We've spent pretty much the whole day with them. We've laughed, we've learned, had a great time. So, going right here, we're going to ask you a few questions.
Far away. Jen's got the question.
As far as setting up your homestead, going back to the very beginning, can you think of anything that you wish you had done differently?
Done it sooner. Totally done it sooner. Yeah.
Well, why is that?
I think the younger we would have started our children, the more they would have learned and gleaned from it. We started when they were, I think, 8 and 9 when we started this journey. And I just think they would have been able to benefit so much more if they were raised in it from the beginning than to start early. Because if anything, where we started midlife there, it was harder on them because they already knew the world. They already knew electric. They already knew video game systems. They already knew all this technology stuff. And then to yank that away from them, out from under them, which we explained to them and we talked to them and that kind of thing. But still, to go from one kind of a life to totally off-grid, nothing, it's a shock for adults, let alone kids. And the transition at first was hard, even though we tried to make up and we tried to do extra stuff and attention, it was still a hard transition for children. So
That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything, like as far as people that are just starting out, maybe they're just looking for their land, they want to get into this, is there any advice you could give them?
ask around. Ask people that you wouldn't think to ask. If you like a certain part of an area, go to all the little mom and pop stores. Talk there, ask there. That's how we found where we're at now. We had went 4-wheeler riding at the place that we liked, and we loved the area. We loved everything about it, and we just stopped at one of the little mom and pop stores, and we never knew none of this stuff. And just by accident, it's so pretty back in here. We'd love to live here, and somebody at the store heard us and said, "Oh, I know somebody that's got a couple of acres back there. They're wanting to sell it." And that's how we found where we're at now. Go to the mom and pop places at the area you like. Ask around. Ask if they know somebody else you can ask. That's the way I recommend finding someplace that's more off-griddy, kind of what you're looking for.
So many people spend so much money on stuff they don't need. They do so many things that they didn't know they needed to do or they didn't need to do. I recommend before the generation dies off, go to people that are 80 and 90 years old. Talk to them. Ask them how they lived, how they did when they was growing up. Go back to the 16th and 17th century. Study their way of living and what they had to use and what they had to do. And get different people's opinions on what they do and what they have and how they live their life. And then it'll help you to better understand what you need and what you want to do.
For an off-grid situation.
For an off-grid situation.
So it's just more than just finding property. This is something that you're going to have to make sure you're ready to commit your life to.
It's a lifestyle. You got to live it or drown.
Yeah, homesteading, the old-timers don't like that term. It's a modern-day term. And the old-timers, it was just a way of life. And most people that they want to live today's modern homestead life, it's blood, sweat, and tears. It's majorly hard work. It's really going back in time in a lot of ways and trying to live, the old-timey ways. And most people are not really willing to take away all the luxuries of life to go back to that. You take your electric and your air conditioning and all your running water, and you take all these necessities, or they're not necessities, but the luxuries of life away. It's hard. It's a hard life.
And it's a big change.
It's a big change, like my wife was talking about with the kids. And if you got little children, the younger you start the children,
the easier.
The easier to be on the children. By the time that they're teenagers, to them it's just life. And if you'll start doing your own research, go talk to people who's lived on farms their whole life versus people who ain't. There's just more joy. There's more peace. They have a more understanding of what life's all about. Of having to kill and process an animal versus going to Walmart and get it, or the store.
So why did you guys decide? Like, why you talk about how big of a change it is? Why did you decide?
What was your spark?
Oh, I go first. I go first. I worked in the healthcare field, worked lots of hours, and it was sad. It was sad to see life and death. It was sad to see family trying to drive miles away to come tend to other family members. It was just a sad existence of what I saw and how short time is. As the Bible says, it's like a vapor. And I wanted more. I wanted more out of life than that. Work 80 hours a week. I make all this, then I got to go work all these hours to pay for all this. And I got tired of the rat race. I got tired of all the stuff and all the junk and all the hours you had to work for to pay for all that junk. And I wanted something different. I wanted it to be simple. And I wanted, if I worked, it was for my own good and for my own gain, and not to make somebody else rich or to make them money. I wanted to be able to benefit myself and what I thought needed to be done and the way I thought things should be.
The milk you're bottling goes in your belly. It ain't getting shipped out to New York.
Right. Our milk come from our cows that we raised, that we knew how they were born, what they ate, how they were taken care of. I didn't want to go to the store and buy Flavor Rich's milk. I didn't want to go buy Walmart's milk because
you now control every aspect of production with you guys as food. You now have control over that.
I have complete control over everything we drink, everything we eat, everything we do, grow, sell, make, produce, and if I choose to go buy something, I choose what things. And another thing, the best place I found to start, because when we started this journey, it was a lot. It was a lot of information. It was very overwhelming. We had to research and study books to find out every aspect. Like when we cleared this land, we even studied what's the best way to turn your house, that when the rising sun in the wintertime comes, it heats your house. What to do to make your house cooler in the summer. To be off grid, if you're going to do it and you're doing it from the ground up, do it and do it right. Do it to the best that you can. Don't take somebody else's advice on it. You read books. You find out east, west, north, how that affects the placement of your home. And that's just the very start of it. I just got tired of running the rat race and wanted something different.
You said what sparks?
Yeah. What sparked you?
Tell you what sparked me. We had electric bills of $600, $700, $800, $900 a month. In the wintertime, I got over an $1,800 electric bill. And I went up there to the electric company to try to work something out with them. And the woman got real smart mouth and told me, she said, well, you have to have it, you will pay it. That's the spark. It clicked in me. I knowed right then, electricity was not on Earth the making of the time. Electricity's only been here for the last 100, 150 years. And they live just fine without it. And what I learned when she said that is, we've got so dependent on it that we think we got to have it. I don't have to have what the world gives me. I only have to have what God gives me. And I told that woman, I said, if I live long enough, Lord willing, I won't have to have electricity. And 4 years later, here I am. No electricity. And I'm glad I don't care about it.
Well, even as we sit here, kind of building on what both of you guys said, we're sitting here and it's around 4:30 in the afternoon. You'd expect the evening heat would be outrageous. But even here, we're sitting in your house. You don't have air conditioning.
Right.
No central heating and air. And it's not miserable here. The house is comfortable.
Because we planned it from the ground up. How thick are the walls?
Almost 10 inches thick.
Once you research every aspect of what it is, each step that you take before you take that step, you're better able knowing what you're going to need when you go into that. So we made the walls thick. We've got lots and lots of insulation. Wherever you live, whether it's hot where you live or whether it's cold where you live, you never go wrong with insulation. The more you can put in, the better, because it keeps heat out and keeps it cool in the summertime.
If I had anything to do different on the house,
More insulation.
I'd build a 2 by 10. I'd have 2 by 10 walls. That'd be the only difference. I would.
Instead of 2 by 6 walls.
It wouldn't take nothing to heat it. And when you shut everything down and keep the sun from getting in your house, you shut everything. I mean, it stays 70 degrees in here.
Well, you built this house with your bare hands.
That's right.
And you did it all in how long?
I got it up to where we could live in it in 3 months. Well, there was nothing but a pine forest. And from the pine forest, 3 months later, we had a structure to live in. It didn't have doors and windows, but it had walls and roof. And that's how we lived. And then the Lord just kept supplying as we needed something. He just kept giving what we needed as we needed.
And here you are now in a beautiful house.
Well, I thank you. I give God all the glory.
Preparing for this, we learned that you had been on a television show because of your homestead, which I can understand that because it's a beautiful place. And it just made me wonder, how did that affect your life? If being on it, how did that change your life? You said something earlier about people recognize you, and
Well, we were on the TV show Homestead Rescue from the Discovery Channel. When they called us about being on the episode, we never wanted to be that kind of people that, we didn't want people to look at us because we were on the TV show and think we were something that we were not, or to think we were better than somebody else, because we're not. And we started just like everybody else, and to this day, unless we tell people, people can't tell or know that we were on a TV show. That's not who we are. We were born in Kentucky. We've lived in Kentucky our whole lives, and we're just like anybody else. We're no better than anybody else, and anybody could end up on a TV show that chooses to do the off-grid thing. It was just, I don't know how they found us or how it ended up, but anybody could do that if you just choose to put some effort in it and to get out and really live that life. The word's going to get out if you really live that kind of life. You can't sit in your air-conditioned home and go to work and work 40 hours a week and I'm going to go do a little bit of gardening. That's not going to get you on a TV show. But if you're hardcore doing something, word's going to get out that you're hardcore doing it and you're living it, and that's how they're going to find you.
So the question was, how did it change our life?
Yeah.
It was a blessing that God was able to use people whom some people think that even the television's evil. God was able to use a television show to help bless some of his people. And if he'll help and bless us, he'll help and bless anybody else. And without that show, we didn't have the money for a well. And you get out here in these springs, now there's all kinds of springs. But you start packing that water from the springs back to the house for drinking water, you can say you done something at the end of the day. And then for them to drill that well and put that well in for us was a blessing. And then having to try to figure out how to do garden back here in the woods was a challenge. And then for them to come in and clear us out some land and put in some really good dirt and fence it up for the wildlife don't get in it was just a pure blessing. And I praise God for it.
And that episode that was on the Discovery Channel, the name of the episode was called Poisoned.
So, you guys are pretty deep in the woods back in here.
Yes.
Does it bother you being this far away from any local amenities? Does that ever...
I only want to be farther.
Yeah, that's my only regret. We couldn't get farther
Couldn't
back
get
and
farther
farther
back.
away.
Just want to be deeper in the woods?
Just want to be deeper in
Deeper.
the woods. Yep.
Far is not far enough.
I got to where I hated people, and as far as away from people I could get, the better off I was. And then God filled me full of his spirit. Now I'm wanting to leave the woods, go to help people,
Well, what's been the greatest setback back here? Because you're so far away from everything.
It takes us 30 minutes to drive out to even get close to town.
Well, most of everything you need, nutritional wise, is here.
Yes,
Right.
we do our own.
So if you need something extra from out there in the rest of the world,
We can wait. We're not in no hurry. It's not that big a deal.
Convenience is an amenity to it.
it's just something you guys pick up sparingly when you
Yeah.
leave the homestead.
Oh, well, honey, next time we go out, let's buy another pack of light bulbs. Well, I mean, it's nothing we have to go out to get. It ain't like I'm cooking my meal based on what I stopped at the store this week and got, because it's not.
Yeah, we can go 3 and 4 weeks and never go to town. Easy.
And back here in the woods, like during this past winter, when the electric was out for such a long period of time, and the roads were, you had to have 4-wheel drive to get in and out, we could have stayed down here 3 months and never had to leave as far as nutritional.
That's awesome. You had mentioned working in healthcare.
Yes.
Right now, especially staying healthy seems very important and newsworthy. And do you have any thoughts on this? I'm sure you feel like you're healthier now.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
to say, I have to be on this one. I weigh 240 pounds. I'm only 5.5 foot tall. I was a fat little Pillsbury boy fella, and it was, I started eating a lot when my wife got pregnant. Somehow it got over on me somehow or another. I gained all her what she lost during when she had the baby. I gained somehow or another. But anyway, when we started transitioning this life, my wife kind of went even further with it, to the degree that if we didn't raise it, eat it, kill it, or do it ourselves, we didn't eat. Now there's many days we eat soup, beans, and we eat eggs every day.
Amen. That's right.
And I mean,
It
you
gets old.
don't think that don't get old now? It gets old.
But
But
you got
but
to
anyway, when she started learning how to make her own bread and started doing all this stuff, I made a mind I was going to lose a bunch of weight. And I listen, I'm kids you guys not. Real. Now, I'm not talking about store bought junk now. I'm talking about real hard work making your own bread, your own hog meat, your own milk. They say milk's fattening. I'm talking Jersey milk, real milk. You know, I ate all this stuff, and I ate as much as I wanted. And we didn't. Supper time for us is 9, 10 o'clock at night, and every doctor will tell you you don't eat past 6. We don't eat supper 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I ate as much as I wanted, and I lost 30-something pounds in 2 months, just eating what I wanted to eat. But it was what my wife made.
The real food.
The real food. So what I'm saying is there's a difference between the food in the store, the bread and all those foods at the store, versus the real homemade food back when they used to make, 200 years ago. It's got more nutrition. I learned that the food that we were eating at the store, and my wife been telling me this for 10 years and I wouldn't listen to her, but it has so much more nutrition in it that when you eat, it don't take much to fill you up, and then it sticks with you all day. But you go out here and eat something from the stores or the restaurant, and I'm telling you, I can eat out of anybody. In 3 hours, I'm hungry again. But when you eat real food, it sticks to you. From my way of living, if I had known, we're taught and raised. Most of us, go to the store, get what you need, go to work your 40-hour week. And it's so far from truth, it ain't no wonder that we as people are in such a shape as we're in with sicknesses and diseases.
So eating this real food has made you healthier. The homestead lifestyle itself has taken the excess that living a modern life had put on you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm stronger, I'm healthier, I'm more vibrant, I'm less stressed. I lost weight in a healthy aspect of things.
Eating plenty.
And still get to eat plenty,
You lost weight eating what you wanted to.
Right.
Just living this lifestyle.
Living this lifestyle. Eating bread. People say, well, you eat bread, you're going to gain weight. I lost weight eating bread, but eating real bread.
That being said, what's your most favorite thing about this lifestyle? What's the one thing that really makes you love homesteading?
Freedom.
Freedom.
That's
I
a
don't
different
have
kind
to-
of free out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have to depend on the grid. I don't have to depend on Walmart or a grocery store of any kind. I don't have to depend on what fluctuates in the stocks And the price and the gas, I don't have to depend on any of that stuff. All I got to do is depend on God. He supplies me the garden. He supplies me the harvest. He supplies me the animals and the way to feed them. And we process them and work them up ourselves. We eat good, you know. We go back to the Great Depression. If you'll go back to talk to some of them old timers that are still alive today, a lot of them will tell you, we didn't even know there was a depression even going on. They lived good. They had their own hog meat. They raised their own gardens. They didn't have to go to them lines and sit for some free piece of cheese. They wasn't starving.
That's because they were free.
They were free.
They were living out in the country, and
that's right.
they go to town once or twice a month, maybe if that. And they wasn't going to ask, how's the stock market?
That's right.
They might ask, how much for that roll of fabric right there? I need to make Betty Lou a new dress.
That's right. If you want the real luxuries of life, it's going to cost you. It'll cost you your health. It's going to cost you your finances. It's going to cost you family. It's going to cost you more things than what you really realize.
Want to pay for.
But if you're willing to really to work by the sweat of your face, according to what Scripture says, for a man to do, it's a more honest, pure, more freedom life.
I always heard this saying, the devil will always take you further than what you wanted to go and keep you longer than what you wanted to stay. And to me, that's what the world does. When you get into the rat race and you start running that race and trying to keep up with the Joneses and all the stuff and all the garb that comes with it, you're not only in a race, you're not only on a wheel like a hamster, but you're losing time. Your health suffers for it because you're not able to eat good because you're having to work all these hours to pay for all this stuff. So your health suffers. Your family life suffers. When you're working so much that you're not spending time with your wife or your spouse and your family connections suffer. So really, you're losing more by running the rat race than what you're really gaining. Who cares what the Joneses have? Who cares what the Joneses say? I mean, this kind of life, you don't have to compare yourself to anybody. I mean, you're only comparing yourself to, well, this season was better than last, or this season was worse than last. You're not running a race against everybody else that you're trying to outrun, because that's a big race.
Speaking of the race, when you guys dropped out of the rat race, did you lose friends and people that used to be in your life?
Oh, yes. To this day, people tell us we're crazy. If I couldn't flip a light switch, I'd die. And I was like, no, not really, you won't.
You guys are living my dream out here.
And they can't fathom that. They can't imagine that. We lost a lot of people that, no, we don't want to go visit with them, or we don't want to be their friends. They don't have no air conditioning. It's too hot over there. And the few people that do come, usually they gripe and complain, it's so hot. It's so hot. And I feel bad for them because I know the life they're living, and it is hard when you come out of that life into this. But if you come here, this is our life. We've adjusted to it. If you're going to be our friends and come here, you're going to have to adjust to it. And so we've lost a lot of people that were too hardcore for them, and they don't want anything to do with us anymore, which is okay.
The biggest part of my job when it comes to the podcast is, aside from interviews, is sitting in front of a computer all day with an air conditioner blowing on my face. And I won't lie, it is hot in here, but it's not miserable. This is something that I could live in no problem. I'm not miserable, and like I said, I have an air conditioner blowing in my face 8 hours a day. Got central heating and air in my house. I live a comfortable life. But you guys have taken it so much farther than where I'm at right now, even as a prepper. You guys are where I would love to be. The self-sustainability. The animals here that you guys have. Like today, I played with a calf.
Yeah.
And it just followed me around like a dog.
Right.
You guys, it just sits out on the back porch like a little dog.
Right.
I love it. I guess that would be your front porch, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's
animals. Most people look at animals a couple different ways. They see it in the farming world. In ranchers, they got a tag in their ear and there's a number on them. And to most people, an animal is just a number. Number so and so, number this, number that. And on the other aspect of things, people see it as just food. We see it as life. Jesus gave his life for us that we could live. You have to take an animal's life so that you can live. It's life. That's how I see animals. And like I said, we slaughter all of our animals. But at the same time, why not respect and care for the animals and take care of them, and then they'll take care of you?
Your goats will walk right up to us.
Yeah.
They're not mean. They don't want to butt you any. They just walk up and they want loves and attention.
Even the pigs that we have that we are going to slaughter will let you pet them because we understand the cycle of life. They give us food, and we in turn raise them up. We are good to them. We are kind to them. We're not mean to our animals. We're not smacking them with these sticks and poking them and hitting them and kicking them and all this stuff like these factory farms do to their animals. We respect that animal. We care for that animal. We give it love and attention, and it's happy to see us. When we go out the door, everything's glad that we're there. It's not oh, there comes farmer such and such. He's going to beat us again or give us 4 or 5 antibiotic shots. We look at you when you're here. You're part family. But if you are here for food purposes, when your time comes, we're going to do it as quickly and as humanely as we can because that's how we look at it. You know, if we were that animal, we would want you to hurry up and put us out of our misery, you know, instead of beating on us and doing like the factory farms do to their animals. And just, you know, quickly, like our animals, they'll go down, they'll bend down to eat some grain, and that's all they know. They were happy right up the very last bite that they took. They were happy. You know, here's my victuals, I get to eat, you know, and that's all they know. And it's over. And, I mean, I would want to raise all the animals that people consume that way. And if people really knew how their animals were treated when they go to Walmart to buy their pig or their cow or whatever animal you're eating, I guarantee that you would not be buying your meat from them once you knew how the animals were sustained and raised to feed you.
I think a lot of people wouldn't care. In this day and time we live in, most people, it's like what Jeremy said, you know, it's food. Food. That's what they see. They see a picture of a cow and they think, oh, well, that's a roll of hamburger meat. They don't care where it comes from point A to their grill.
Right.
They don't care about what happened to that cow prior to in its life.
Milk
Milk comes from a carton, and hamburgers grow sporadically out of a little pink container.
Yeah.
If they knew from step A to step B to hit their plate or their glass, even if they were cruel people and they didn't care about that part of the aspect, if you knew how much medicine was put into those animals to get them to grow quicker and faster and produce more, I guarantee they would care because that's where the tumors and the cancers and all this stuff that we have nowadays
And you're
are coming
just
from.
slinging that right into your body.
Yeah, you're just taking it right from, and most of the meat people eat comes from sales where people take their disease and they're sick. You're not taking your best cows out to the sale to sell them. You're keeping them to breed. You're keeping them for yourself. You're taking all your sick, lame, nasty disease stuff up that you put a bunch of antibiotics in just to get it to live to get to the sale.
They actually there's a statistic I talked whenever we did the interview with Jen and B. There's a statistic we talked about, but it's more and more because of processed food. There's the mental illnesses people are being born with. It have the rates ever since the information we have now compared with the information we had a long time ago. They're finding that processed food has increased more and more, mental illnesses and things like autism and stuff like that in children, because the rate has gotten so high that by 2035 or 2030, somewhere in there, it's estimated that 1 in 3 children will be born with autism. Yeah,
and it's all from the food that's consumed when you go out. The sad thing is I've worked at a lot of jobs. I've done a lot of things. Like I said, I worked in the healthcare field. I've worked for the school system. I've even worked at McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was so sad to me to see when I worked there is when school was over, the hordes and hordes and hordes of people that would come through McDonald's to get a Happy Meal. And so the kids have ate processed food all day at school. Mm-hmm. Then when they get out of school, you come by McDonald's or some other fast food restaurant, get them a Happy Meal and shove down their throat. They're getting nothing good for their bodies. They're not getting anything that's helpful to make their bodies be able to fight off infection or disease or anything else. And that's all those kids ever consume. They don't even get a home cooked meal ever.
Well, let me ask you something. Whenever you worked there, did you ever have like a cleaning day where you pulled like the grease
Yes.
tray back and you'd find a patty that's still fresh
Yes.
after being set there for
Yes.
like a year?
Yes.
That happened. I worked at McDonald's for one day, and that's what I found. After that, I didn't eat fast food near as much anymore because it was kind of like this isn't. I don't know what this is.
But it's
But
not food.
Yeah.
When you go on these big dairy farms, they have the cows that are not producing. They're having issues and health issues. They're not walking right. They're having hoof problems. All these things. Those was the cows
That they send to slaughter.
they send to the slaughter
That
to
you're
feed
eating.
this it's federal approved to send to the schools for the children to eat at school.
Or anybody that goes to Walmart buy meat, you're not buying their best stuff. They are not going to sell that stuff. They're going to sell their sick, disease, nastiest stuff first.
It says grade A on that package, but that don't necessarily mean it's grade A.
It's deceiving. That is a bunch of rich people has figured out a way to pay off politicians to get to pass their garbage. So when it's USDA approved and it's FDA approved, it lies. Don't believe it. 90% of all sick and diseased people come from their own food supply, and they don't even know it.
They're doing it to themselves with what they eat and what they consume.
I knew a guy who was a food and beverage director for a hotel chain, and
Yeah.
it was like a high-end hotel chain.
Yeah.
And he told, because he had to research where the stuff came from and stuff like that, and he told me that your standard beef that you get like in pre-made patties and stuff at like a supermarket is almost on par with a can of dog food, with a can of
Yeah.
liquid dog food.
Yes, I totally, yes.
It's
Believe
almost the same thing.
So, what you're telling us is scary and makes me want to aspire to do better and to eat healthier. But what can you tell someone that, like, I've never done canning. I didn't grow up in a home that my mother didn't can. You let me try your grain mill today, which was awesome. But I didn't grow up in a home. And what can you tell people that hear these things and know you're telling the truth about the food that's out there today? How do we get from where we are to where you are?
I've got this one. I want to do this one. Everybody's like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. That's all here. You're the only thing stopping you from doing that. You can do anything that you put your mind to. You just gotta have a want and a desire to do so. And 2, you gotta make your mind up. Okay, now, it is overwhelming when you first start. I totally agree. I 100% get you. It is overwhelming. My suggestion is, because I tried to do all these things at once, and I couldn't make all those drastic changes at one time. It was too much. It was too overwhelming, and all you're going to do is quit. Start someplace. Make a step. Never step back. Only step forward from that part. But make a step. Okay, like, I picked the thing that we consumed the most, and I started there. I thought, well, if I start with our milk supply, which we consumed a lot of milk for a family of 5. We consumed a lot of bread and milk. So I started with the milk. And we stopped going to the store. Either you had to get your own milk or you didn't get any. So we got goats. We started milking the goats. After the goats, we got some cows. We started milking cows. So currently we have dairy goats. We have dairy cows. We will hand milk. And on occasion, we milk with a milk machine, depending on what time we have. And we only consume that. You don't go at the store. You don't buy milk for any reason. And if the cows or goats are dry, which means they're not in milk because they're going to get ready to have babies, we also can enough milk to during their dry spells of when they're not in milk. I have milk that I have canned from them that I can use for during that time period. Because there is no going to the store for us to get milk. I refuse, and I'll never step back into that. So if you make a step, never step back. Never go back. Second is bread. We consumed a lot of bread. So we stopped bread. Either we're going to make our own or we're not going to eat it. You have to make your mind up. You have to you have to want it. You have to make an effort. You are your own worst enemy. If you don't make your mind up and if you don't take a step and never step back, only go forward, you'll never get anywhere. Keep stepping forward. And then we just added from there. The next would be vegetables. Next would be meat. And we just stepped from step to step until we are to where we're at today.
And to add to that, ask the question again so that helps me to.
For those of us who recognize that the food in the stores and at the fast food restaurants is not healthy and want to get away from that, but don't have any kind of background, didn't grow up with, a mom that canned or has never made bread, what do we do? How do we get started?
Best jumping off point for a newbie homesteader to become nutritionally sufficient for themselves.
I was raised in the grocery store. I worked in the grocery store when I was 14 years old. Everything came from the store. If you wanted anything, you went to the store and bought it. You worked 80, 90 hours a week. I was raised in that kind of lifestyle. And then when we started trying to change over, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know how to do anything. And I'm the kind of person that I can't understand half of what I read. But my wife had determination to the degree that I'm going to learn it. That's what you have to have. You have to have determination. You have to have grit. You have to be willing to do a lot of work and screw it all up to learn one lesson. You have to be willing to do that.
Ain't that the
You
truth?
have to be willing to sweat. Most people's got a lot of mouth and talk and we're going to do this, but when it comes down to start using the real muscle and the real sweat, they start backing off and say, oh, that's just too hard. You have to be willing to work hard, sweat, and you have to have grit. And so for a build me up, I guess you could say, is if I can do this myself, I'm not a smart person. I didn't graduate school. I wasn't raised and taught any of this stuff. I used to sit and think about how they build them pyramids back in all those years. They didn't have all those sophisticated tools like I do out there in my workshop, I mean, they had enough sense to know how to, put up a 2-ton rock 40 foot up in the air. I didn't even have enough sense to how to hang up a hog. I'm telling you the truth. I didn't. But what did I do? I kept going back to the old people who had done it most of their whole life. And I learned from them. And I trial and error. You know how many hogs that I cut up and messed up? You know how many screw ups I've done? Trial and error. Don't give up. Don't back down. Persevere. What's the word?
Persevere.
There you go.
We've had to throw whole hogs away because he's messed it up. And that's an expensive mistake, and it's a hard mistake.
That hurts.
But you are not going to be perfect. You're not going to do every step, and it's going to be, oh, this is so good and great, blah, 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 blah. You're going to make some bad mistakes. And it's going to cost you some money, and it's going to cost you a lot of time and sweat equity. But if you don't start and be willing to fail, how are you ever going to get it right? You ain't. And the same thing with canning. I'd never canned a day in my life. My people had done it growing up, but I had never touched it. I had never wanted to touch it. And then that one day when we decided we're done with this, I knew that was right. I knew what they did was right. I knew that was pure. And I knew I was going to have to do that. And there was no way for me to learn that. I had waited too long to ask those people. I had to go to other older people and ask them, how do you can jelly? How do you can preserves? How do you can vegetables? How do you can meat? One year, we bought, I don't know how many bushels of corn. We probably canned 100 quarts of corn because we didn't want to be dependent on a freezer. We didn't want to be like the rest of the world. So we canned it. And got wintertime, it was cold. We started eating on some of the corn. It was awful. It was so bad. I was like, the chickens wouldn't eat it. That's bad. If the chicken won't eat some canned corn, that was some nasty corn. It was horrible. But what we had found out after we talked, we did this is what the corn looked like. We asked all these old people that knew how to do it. They said, your corn was no good when you bought it. The people that you had bought it from, because at that time we were learning, not where we're at today, we were learning. So we were buying the corn from other people, and we were canning it. And they're like, they sold you corn that was past its good. Now, when you open an ear of corn, it should be nice and shiny and bright. And when you pluck a hole in one of those little kernels of corn, it should spurt out fluid very easily. And so the corn that we had bought from the person was dried out and done past its time. We didn't know that. And that was an expensive mistake that really hurt us that whole winter. But it was, if we hadn't done that, we would have never learned. We would have never known, wait, this is wrong. This is not right. It shouldn't taste nasty like this. It should be good. And today we can corn, and it is so good. So stinking good. But it took us a long time to get to that point.
And just to add to that, another suggestion I would have. So many people have arrogance and pride. They're more prideful to ask someone because they're afraid someone's going to shame them or think that they're not very smart. Well, I got news for everybody who wants to listen to this. I'm the dumbest person that you'll ever meet. And if I can learn it, anybody else can learn it. But you just have to be willing to ask people.
Willing.
And you have to be willing to make the mistakes and say, oh man, how did I do that? And, you know, there's a lot of, there's contrary, hateful people out there. Yes. But there's a lot of good people that are willing to just help you, you know? And then when you get to meeting them kind of people, you'll also end up meeting a friend, you know? So just don't be prideful and arrogant, worrying about what someone's going to think that you're too dumb. Because, like I said, I'm the dumbest one you'll ever meet in your life. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And the way of life is, all these thousands of years, it was all taught from generation to generation to generation. Well, these last 2 generations just went plumb stupid to the degree that you just go to work your 40 hours and sit in air conditioning. You know, we're not taught nothing no more. And that way of life is leaving. And when these old generation people die off, if we don't learn it, it's going to be gone.
Donna got excited when I told her how old me and Jared were.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 30. He's 29.
Ain't that awesome?
Wow. Well, that's probably the first people that age that we've met that wants to.
All the people we know that
all of our friends are 70 years old and older. That's our friends. You're minimum 70 years old to be our friend. Those are the people that we get along with. They get us. They
understand this life.
They understand it, yeah.
And we understand them.
And we
can't understand that. Oh, let's go to such and such party. And I'm like, no, I don't. I got to put some corn up. I got to kill some chickens.
I got cow's milk at 9:30 tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they don't understand the responsibility.
When you go out, and I learned this, and it's rough, but when you get to the point that that you have to put up your own food, that you don't go to the store and get it, it consumes most of your own life.
It does. Most of your time. There is
that's
none of
a
this
fact.
all myself time, I myself.
Vacationing and running up and down the road.
A lot of that will stop.
You can't go on vacation with all these animals.
No. And when the beans come in, they're in. You got to work them up. Right then.
We can't wait. Well, next I'm going to go do this week with such and such. And no, if you want your beans to taste good when you can them, and you don't want it tasting like that first batch of corn we did, you've got to get it when the beans are ready.
Stay persistent.
What they say about idle hands.
Yeah.
I want to ask you both this question. I'm going to start with Jeremy, then I'll move to Donna. What is one item you would recommend for any brand new homesteader to go ahead? You know, I say it a lot, buy once, cry once. One item to go ahead and chalk off your list, get it early, and it'll help you more than anything through the rest of your journey.
You need to think about it? Because I got a good one.
Go ahead, honey.
Okay.
You've already bought the land, right? You've already got the land.
Before your house is built and all that, something that you're going to use for the rest of your days as a homesteader that you wish you would have bought first and foremost.
It's a long list.
Yeah.
What's number one?
There seems to be there's a good answer for each aspect. Like when you're building your house, there's a good answer for that part of it. Then when you're actually raising the house up, there's a part to that. So each part of it, there was a very important part. There's not one answer, I don't think, for that big of an area.
That's a good answer, actually. I don't think keeps coming to my mind for that as a good quality axe.
Good quality axe.
You know, I mean, like my wife said, though, there's just so many
to each part and section.
You know, if you
what do you use the most here?
What do I use the most? If we went somewhere else, the first thing I'd build would be a barn.
So before you ever build your house,
before I do anything else, the next thing, if I ever left here and went somewhere else, like we went up to Alaska somewhere, the barn would be built for. We would live in the barn until I got the house built.
So
Yes.
start with the house for your animals before you
That's
even
right.
worry about
Because
yours.
the animals, if you're living, and I'm not talking about part time and playing around bull junk. I'm
Hobby
talking about
farming.
I'm not talking about Harvey farming.
You're
I'm
talking about living this
I'm
life.
talking about living a real life. Going back even the 18th, 17th, 16th century. The animals is your life. And when it gets cold and things get bad, you don't take care of them animals, you're going to starve.
Well, it's easy for you to live in a camper while you're building your
Yes.
house.
Exactly right.
Yes.
But you can't
You
put
can't get a cow
a
in there.
1,000-pound cow
That's right.
in a
in a
camper.
camper.
In a camper. That's exactly right. And then when they start having calves and start having baby goat, you don't want all that in your camper.
Mhm.
You know? And so, yes, I would build a barn. I would build a barn, and me and my wife would live up in the top until we got the house built. That'd be the first thing I'd do. If I did anything different, that's what I'd do. That we've been 15 years. People say, "Well, I can't homestead without a barn." That's not true.
That's a lie.
That barn out there that you guys saw, that's the first barn we've owned, and we've been doing this for almost 20 years.
So if you had it to do over, you'd have built that first.
Yes, that would have been my first yes. So many years have we fought trying to make something work to milk in, to do animals in. My wife, in January, my wife's bringing baby goats in and putting them in her bathtub. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to do whatever you can do to survive. But to me, and if you go back in the old times, their barns was their life because that's where their animals was at. So yeah, the barn to me would be the top priority.
If you just want to live this life part-time and you don't want to go into it hardcore, then I would recommend wherever it is that, whatever's making you want to move to this life. Say it was better food. I want home-cooked food. Then you would start with a canner and
Right.
a grain mill to where you could grind your own flour and corn to make your own bread.
Right.
But it depends on your reasoning for starting this journey.
If you want to get off the grid, start with solar panels.
That's right.
Get a well drilled.
That's exactly right.
If you want to start off with better nutrition, like you said, make sure you have a canner and enough there to work the land, enough tools to work the land.
That's right.
If you want animals, make sure you have your barn.
That's right.
But I wouldn't want. My important thing to tell people, we didn't have the barn. We didn't start that way. We started out. Don't let anything stop you from starting as long as you made up in your mind
Right.
and you've made it up and you're going to do it. Don't let any one thing or any one aspect stop you.
That's right.
Start that journey. Yes, it will take you longer and it might be harder, but not anything is going to stop you from starting that journey and then later on fulfilling the whole circle of the journey.
Right.
Don't let anything stop you. You can do it. Even if you live in a house first and then you build a barn, which that's what we did. We added things that would make our life easier as we went along.
Yeah.
Things that needed to happen and grow and become, we did that as we were able to do that. You don't have to go into this, well, I've got enough money to buy my land, build my house. But you don't do that. We would have never did this if that's how we looked at it. We just chose to make a step. The first step, get the land.
Yeah.
Get the land that you want as far away from everything as you want. Start there, because once you start the journey, you're going to build one step off another. Don't, I'm going to do this temporary and then I'm going to start over later when I can do better. That's the wrong attitude. Start right and build upon each step.
Well, our first milk cow, we milked under a tree.
Yeah,
For 6 months.
under a tree, out in the weather.
Then I upgraded and built me I cut me some trees down, throwed me 4 holes in the ground, throwed the post in the ground, throwed me a shed up, some scrap metal. Then I had when it started pouring rain, then I was out of the rain. And so we think that we have to have all this stuff, to start living this lifestyle. Just like what my wife's trying to say, just start with what you got, make what you want work, and then you can start building on it as you go in, every year as you live life.
It's not going to happen overnight.
No, unless you got
It's not going to happen in
plenty of
3
money.
years.
If you got plenty of money, you can have it all set up perfect.
Which
But
would
if
be
you're
nice.
poor folk,
Just start.
for
Just start.
thousands of
somewhere.
years, they was all poor folk too. You know, they didn't have everything just right.
So you could argue the most important thing you need to start is your first step, whatever your first
Yes.
step is.
Just never go back. Whatever your first step is, build upon that step, but never step back. Because once you step back, you're going to slide off and you're going to quit and you're not going to make it. Never, whatever your step is, whatever you commit to yourself, you're your worst enemy. You're going to stop yourself. Nobody else is going to stop you. Never step back from that step. Like, if something happened and I didn't have no milk, I'm not going back to the store. I will do without.
And
I'll never go back.
If you feel really in you that you really want to do this, as a husband and wife, first off, husband and wife need to be in agreement. It's so hard when you have one pulling against one another. The Bible talking about pulling against the yoke. But if husband and wife agree and you really want to do, you really feel it in you to do this, first off, that's something inside you telling you it's what you need to do, first off. But when you really feel that, right then, start separating yourself from people who are trying to criticize you and put you down.
And negativity.
And start involving yourself around people who will help you
or encourage you
and build you up and not bring you down.
I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
What is one message each of you can give to someone kind of curious about all this? Someone who's don't know nothing about homesteading, don't know nothing about prepping. They're just kind of trying to take an interest in it. What's one message from you guys' heart that you'd like to tell them?
If you're even thinking about starting this kind of a lifestyle, read books about it. Watch videos about it. Talk to people that have lived old school. It is hard. It is not easy. And if you're an easy kind of person and anything's a little hard, you're going to quit. Don't even start. Don't waste your time.
Maybe go volunteer on somebody's
farm and that's
something.
hard. But if you could find somebody that would let you volunteer or let you come in, which is hard, but that would be great. It's a big commitment. It's not a part-time job kind of thing. It's a full-time or no time. You can't be off-grid and live a hardcore life.
Do an experiment. You can't go to any store. Let me rephrase it this way. Go to a store, buy cabbage, cauliflower, and lettuce. That's supposed to be the healthiest thing you can eat. Bring it home and wash it about 12 times. Take it out there and find you some wild rabbits. Watch the rabbits. They won't eat it.
Or the ants. Even the ants won't eat stuff from the store.
That's a fact. My message is the food that you're eating is not what you think it is. It does more harm to people than what they realize.
So what you're trying to say is, maybe even if you're not going to go full homestead lifestyle, start you a little garden and change your diet to fresh food and see what kind of wonders it does for you.
That's right.
Just
Go
make
to
a
farmers
step.
markets, talk to people who have local farms, talk to other people that may have a little bit of their own meat they may sell one year, like a slab of ham, some hamburger meat, If enough people got together and had their own specialty, we could better help one another instead of depending on factory farmers and making them more richer and us more sicker.
All right, guys, that's about all the time we have for today, and we really thank you guys both for agreeing to do this.
That's no problem. We just hope it could help somebody.
Yeah, we'd be glad to answer any questions if somebody wanted to type some questions.
We do all things in the name of Jesus for the glory of God is what we do.
Thank you very much for doing this. We've really enjoyed spending time
we
with
appreciate
you today.
you
You're
guys.
welcome. You're welcome.
We
We're glad
appreciate
to
you
do it.
guys.
Hope that it was a help to somebody.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. We would also like to thank Jeremy and Donna for lending their voices to the podcast, and thank Jen and Bee for agreeing to guest host this episode. From all of us at the Kentucky Prepper Podcast, we wish you the best of luck in all your preps. This is Josh, signing off.